Hey guys, my name is Mitsumiyo, and welcome to another episode of Sunday Mailbox. This is a video series where you, the viewer, can submit your gaming-related questions, and then I will give my humble opinion on them. To get the formalities out of the way real quick, if you'd like to submit your own question that could be featured in an upcoming episode, you can do so by leaving a comment down below, or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. The first question for today is, do you think that Ubisoft should have brought back the Outbreak DLC for Rainbow Six Siege? Absolutely, especially considering the more than lackluster Halloween event that's going on right now. It seems a bit surprising that they didn't bring back this content because it fits the theme perfectly. Ubisoft spent months upon months creating that Outbreak content, and to have it only being available for that short period of time and not bringing it back for something like Halloween seems like a missed opportunity. On top of that, when they introduce new operators like Alibi, for example, they could infuse that into that content. For example, Alibi would be perfect for this mode, allowing her to throw out her different decoys everywhere. The zombies maybe get distracted by it for a short period of time, and especially on the harder difficulties, that could be a perfect operator to have on your team. The harder modes were not easy, and so to give your team that little bit of breathing room so that you can secure the objective or just simply avoid everyone getting taken out would be awesome. Like every single year, they add in new operators that weren't necessarily designed for Outbreak, but could work for that, I think would really add to the value of that mode as well. They could even take it a step further and try to improve upon the old system or make it a little bit more interesting by adding in different modifiers. They already did the legwork here. Like I said, they spent a lot of time developing this, and so to add in maybe some quick modifiers where maybe one round the zombies are simply faster, maybe the special ones spawn more frequently, they could maybe make it so that you can only take out zombies by hitting them in the head, body shots just simply wouldn't do anything. Like there'd be a lot of ways that they could put an interesting twist on it to give people a challenge and really just make it even better than it was before. All in all though, I would not expect this whatsoever. For some reason, I believe I read somewhere that Ubisoft has come out and confirmed that they have no plans of bringing this back for some reason. I don't know if it's the data cap limits. I don't know if it's the infrastructure of their game. I have absolutely no idea, but I'm pretty sure they stated that it's just not something that they plan on doing anytime in the future, which is also a bit disappointing. And so I agree with you. I thought this would be perfect for Halloween. I thought they did all the legwork already. It would have been so, I would imagine, simple to reintroduce it, but that doesn't seem like it's going to be the case. The next question comes from Garrett, and it is, what are your thoughts on Red Dead Redemption 2? I have fallen in love with this game. I do need to preface and say that I've only been playing for about 15 hours. I definitely have not gone through the entire story. Like, this only is a first impressions, even if it is 15 hours. But the game is fantastic. From the writing, the storytelling, to all the different characters, I've really fallen in love with the world that they've created, but that doesn't mean that it's perfect. One thing I did have to kind of overcome is the very slow-paced gameplay. If you go into this expecting that it's going to be an action-oriented game, you're probably going to be disappointed. You need to take this very slow and just kind of enjoy the immersion that Rockstar is trying to create here. Everything that you do basically has some sort of interaction or animation. You're going to walk slowly around your camp. You're going to take a while to get from point A to point B. The gameplay itself can be a little clunky, but that's because that's what they're going for. That isn't going to be for everyone. A good example of this is that if you try to explore a room, for example, you need to walk up to a drawer, you then need to hold down a button for 3 seconds to open the drawer, you then need to go through a 5-second animation to open said drawer, you then need to hold down the button again for 3 seconds to pick up the item in the drawer, and then you need to go through another animation to pick up said item. It is a slow-paced gameplay. I will fully admit that for the first couple hours, I wasn't really sold on it because of this realistic approach. They're really trying to immerse you into this world, and they kind of sacrifice more of the streamlined aspects that you would expect in most other video games to try to achieve that immersion. It's gonna be clunky, and it's rough when you first start, or at least it was for me. But then when I started to get comfortable, and I set in, and I understood what they were going for, it really opened up to me, and so far, it has been fantastic. The next question comes from Tyler, and it is, what do you think about being able to defuse the objective while prone? I don't think that is necessary. You have to remember that offense had to put themselves in a vulnerable position at the beginning to be even able to plant the objective to start off with. And so why should defense be able to have this awesome advantage to be able to go prone behind objects and defuse it from the safety of like a windowsill, for example? That seems completely counterintuitive to the entire game balance of what this mode is going after. Offense planted the objective. Now you as a defender, because you weren't able to stop them, now you're on the back foot. This should give offense a huge advantage against you. And while yes, this wouldn't swing things dramatically in the favor of the defensive team, it would give them definitely an advantage in some situations. How many times did offense put this near a windowsill? They would then need to somehow get a line of sight underneath that windowsill as well to be able to make sure that you're not diffusing it. And so I think that's just really what it comes down to. The entire gameplay balance revolves around that dynamic between offense and defense, and I really think that defense should be on the back foot in those situations. The next question comes from Average Joe, and it is, recently this console has been growing in popularity in Siege. How would you feel about trying the console esports again? I think it could really help the community grow even more. So it's my understanding that the reason why the console pro scene fizzled away and is no longer a thing for Siege is that it wasn't really working from a spectator standpoint. I remember when they were first starting the Pro League, they would have PC and console basically side by side. For the first part, it would be the console players, and then after that, it would be PC, and the difference in gameplay was staggering. Now, I'm not saying that the console players were bad, it was just simply because they were using a controller, they weren't able to have the same precision compared to the PC side of things. And I just think from a spectator standpoint, I think the community just kind of voiced their opinion based off of the very viewership itself that they would rather watch the PC version compared to console. And so I don't want to make this a thing about, console versus PC. That's not what I'm trying to say. You also have to remember that this is a business for them and viewership matters, and when no one was watching the console, and I think, if I remember right, that was the reason why they stopped it to begin with. That's really what it comes down to at the end of the day. And so I'm definitely not opposed to having a console scene pop on up. I don't think it would happen, especially for those reasons. The next question comes from George, and it is, do you think that having a new player playlist is a good idea for Rainbow Six? If you are under level 20, you could have the option to play newbie games with other players and maybe limit them to base operators. I think this would help newer players get used to the game mechanics before jumping into a real game with all the DLC operators. So I believe other video games have done something like this, and while it sounds great in theory because newer players can get acclimated to controls, they can figure out what Rainbow Six Siege is all about, and while they won't really get a good understanding of what this game has to offer, because let's be honest, newer players are going to have terrible strategies, and if you're going against players that also have a terrible strategy, you're not really going to know the ins and outs of the game once you reach level 20, but at least it will give you kind of that introduction, which I think a lot of people desire. The one thing they'd have to overcome, or the downside of having something like this, is that it relies on a lot of newer players joining the community consistently. It doesn't really take all that long to get to rank 20, and so people are going to be moving out of that newbie queue fairly quickly. And so if you don't have more people joining constantly, there's not going to be enough of a player base in that queue to be really able to justify having it to begin with. It's just going to take a long time to find games. Longer queue times mean a lot of people might even be turned away from Rainbow Six Siege simply because they can't find a game to begin with. And so while it might work for Rainbow Six Siege, I don't really know how many newer players are joining every single day, but that would be one problem that they'd have to overcome. Another issue with this is that it does not guarantee that everyone in this queue is going to be new to the game, which is the same problem that you experience in casual as well. Yeah, a vast majority might be, but let's say a free weekend happens, the people that have been playing since the very beginning could simply create a new account, and they're now in this new queue, just destroying everyone that they come across. And so I think what it really just comes down to is that Ubisoft should do their best to try to improve the matchmaking that we already have to be able to identify these newer players. Figure out who is new, who clearly is not, even though they have a new accounts and separate them. It's not going to be perfect. There's never going to be a perfect system. And while I like where your head is at, I think that they could try to introduce something like this that definitely would be something that they would have to overcome. But yeah, guys, that is about it for today's episode of Sunday Mailbox. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you thought about what we discussed in today's video. Are you enjoying Red Dead Redemption 2 as well? Do you think that Ubisoft should have reintroduced the Outbreak DLC to Rainbow Six Siege? Let me know down below in the comments. As always, if you'd like to submit your own question for an upcoming episode, you can also leave a comment or by sending me a Facebook or Twitter message. But until tomorrow, guys, have a good one and take it easy.